Hello
and
welcome
to
Plat
Chat
Overwatch
episode.
Well, I don't know.
You broke the chain. You broke the chain.
Sorry, I failed my hosting duties.
Special
Ranking
episode
of
off tanks.
Oh, I thought tanks is kind of another word, but
It's
sure,
off-
it's just steal tanks from me.
Off tanks.
Yeah.
All right.
We didn't discuss hyphens, yeah.
I don't know where to continue. I can't plan where your brain is going. You said top, and I'm like, I don't
10.
know. Oh, top 10, sure, top 10.
Top 10 rank.
of all time.
Welcome to Plat Chat Overwatch. Special ranking episode, off tank edition. It's the top 10 off tanks. Yay.
Yay.
It's this episode. Josh is in the US now. They let him back in.
Yeah, I'm back, and I think, frankly, that it's a good thing I am back, because what the hell did you get up to last week? What was going on there?
Avast lost a lot of goodwill. We looked at
Actually, I'm gonna put out this won't sway the opinion of the public, but I don't care. They can sit outside my castle with their pitchforks and torches. I don't give a shit.
your ratings are dipping, Connor.
No, I received a ton of messages with the word, I'm from the community, well-respected members, not going to name any names because I don't want them to take the same pitchforks. I'm willing to take them with the term specifically based. Okay? So that I'm just going to put that out there. And so I feel validated because my upper echelon of elites has validated me, and thus I don't care about the peons. So that's fine.
I see.
You should care though about your, the public perception, the PR ratings, whatever the fuck they call it. What
He's
they
in the
call it?
ivory tower. Yeah.
Listen, how are you going to get another 4-year term? With
I have
ratings like
a
this?
stranglehold on the media, so I'm not worried about it.
That's actually so true. Controlling the co-stream distribution, getting involved in Plat Chat. All he needs to do is penetrate the official broadcast, and he's done it. He's just
Well,
the
the
oligarch.
thing is, I already do have ties to the official broadcast, and then I'm working in the orgs too. I'm literally baked in to every level. You can't get rid of me. I'm Rupert Murdoch. You can't remove me.
I don't think that's something to be proud of. The Rupert Murdoch of the Overwatch scene.
Oh, well, God, where do we begin?
No, wait. But before we get to the off tanks, I need to know what Sideshow was upset about last week's ranking, okay? Because I just want to lay it out there. Because
I'm sure
the thing is, I can probably predict what you were upset about, but there were so many bad takes that I'm not quite sure which one you want to go with
No,
first.
you mean base takes.
Well, I did my own rankings, right? And I talked on stream about them too. But the biggest thing for me that I'm concerned that it's going to continue moving forwards as well. So is the idea of this insidious recency bias in the greatest of all time rankings. That's what I'm concerned about, because I don't care if you genuinely think that, Iris is a better skilled player than Jonak or something, right? Like, yeah, that's fine. That's an opinion that you could have. I'm fine with that. But for a greatest of all time ranking, there's got to be some all time involved, surely. So that's what I'm worried about with this. Like,
well, you shut me down when you were on another episode.
Okay, you had wins in there.
Yeah,
that's not all time either, because he didn't play in Overwatch.
I'm looking all of the Overwatch time.
No, you're only looking at the past.
A direct quote from you said, "If it's before the Overwatch League, I don't give a fuck."
Exactly. If they
How is that GOAT?
No. I'm saying if they only played before the Overwatch League, I don't give a fuck. That's what I said. If you were only good before the Overwatch League, I don't give a fuck, because that's when the game heated up. But if you only played the final year of Overwatch 1, how are you getting in the ranking? That's my question.
I feel like we can be upset about Avast, all we can, but I feel like so many people in the community, they completely neglected that Matt put Iris at 7.
Oh, Matt's a lost cause,
He was
though.
7.
That's why people are mad at Avast, is because they expect better. With Matt, they expect nothing.
But the thing is, the difference is my opinions, as I've said, are based.
Based.
So, I'm fine with it.
Based on what? That's what I want to know.
Well, that's locked in the secret vault, so you can't figure out the formula.
See, I'm just wondering what the hell we're going to unveil with this off-tank ranking either.
I actually think you guys are going to be a lot more. This is a lot more conventional ranking, I think, from my side.
I'm not gonna lie.
I agree with that.
I agree too. I think that when I was looking through the off-tank rankings, I was actually struggling to whittle it down. With main support and flex support, I felt like I had to keep pushing people into the list that didn't really belong. With off-tank, there was so many good players that I felt It felt rough cutting some of them, even towards the bottom.
I didn't think I was going to be on this episode because Matt was supposed to be on, so I didn't think I'd have to defend any of my decisions.
But that's what's good. That's what's nice about it, though. Plus, let's be honest. Do we really want to listen to Matt? Like, let's be
Yeah.
honest,
But I'm just warning you all. There might
Okay.
be
He
some
doesn't
weird
take the
things.
rankings seriously. Matt is a disgrace to the rankings episodes.
Yeah.
Okay,
What, you want to get started?
I think we should begin.
Okay. The Emperor Palpatine looking out.
No, he
more like a-
doesn't look
that's more like a hobbit.
Palpatine there.
What did you do to my ears?
I don't know.
What did you do to
I
my
don't
ears?
know.
look
Anyway,
like a bald
let's get
hobbit.
started. Anyway, number 10 of the top 10 off tanks of Overwatch 1's history, Plat edition. Rolling it down. Number 10 is Hopper,
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think.
an Overwatch League nomad who brought consistent performance no matter where he went on multiple heroes. I agree with that one, Johnny. That's a
I
good
think
quote.
that's very fair. I think
Yeah.
that's extremely fair right off the bat.
I will say, oh my god, the most fun thing about the doing all these rankings, and like I noticed this when I did the off tank rankings. It's like I could like tell like the hot take like when I was doing it, and I was like, whoa, Johnny, that's a hot take. What are you doing right here? And so like Hotba was one of those players who I personally always like rated pretty highly, even though like on Guangzhou and New York, like he didn't always have the best of times. But I've always thought he's a very solid player. The way he came into the Philadelphia Fusion in 2018, actually played a pretty big role in that team and their playoff run, and played. I think he played all the maps in the finals as well against London Spitfire, whereas Poco only
Yeah,
played
they
like
started
3 or 4.
playing Sado,
Yeah, but I mean,
Hotba,
He also played almost none of the regular season and has. I mean, he's been a
Yeah,
journeyman,
I
but I
mean-
think again, 2021 was his best year, kind of filling in for a fusion squad that was that desperately needed him, right? With Poco having those visa issues. I had him on my top 15, but I am actually really surprised he made the top 10. I think I had a significant number of people above him, so I'm wondering what the rest of the list looks like now.
I actually think Hoppa. People forget too that it didn't really matter towards the later part of his career, but he was also one of the few players that, especially Rolllock eradicated this, that he could play a lot of other roles.
Yeah.
too. He
Yes.
could play DPS specifically, which didn't matter because it was the DPS off tank players were hunted to extinction in the Great Rolllock.
There are a few off tanks like that who genuinely can like play DPS, like if they want
Yeah.
to. And
I mean,
Hotba
there
is
used
one
to
of
be
those. He just
remember
plays
when main
ranked.
sports played fucking Sombra? Like
Yeah.
that was also a thing too. Like there's a lot of weird shit, but I think
Oh, I forgot
Hoppa
about
was been relatively consistent across his time in the league, which I value heavily. I put a lot of value on consistency as a player, and like sure he hasn't always been the greatest, but he's pretty flexible and has been relatively consistent with some relatively stellar performances at times.
Yeah.
So to me, with
Sure.
that much time in the Overwatch League and his flexibility, it earned like a top 10 spot. You know, I think I had him around like 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I can't remember where I had him, but it was definitely the things I took into account was finalist and having a resurgence when the competition was highest, essentially.
Yeah. I
Like
think that's
when-
very fair.
There's some players they achieve quite a lot early and then they kind of fall off and they don't have the same highs. But him coming into the Philadelphia Fusion when they had so many issues and being able to step back into essentially the highest level of competition in the Overwatch League, essentially in APAC, was one of the factors that I took into consideration. So yeah, I quite like Hopper at number 10.
Yeah. A good player that's been around for a long time.
Let's move on. Number 9. What is this one going to be? Number 9 in our top 10 off-tank list. Roll in the thingy. Here we go. Number 9. It is Poco.
Whoa.
He's down a lot lower than I expected.
Poco refined his game in 2018 to become an elite off-tank, rebounding in 2020 again to bench even Fury. Viva la Pokebomb.
Yeah, Vive, in fact, because it's not Spanish.
Viva.
But
Vive.
Well, no, Vive.
Also, there's no A. There's no A in that.
Yeah. I found Poco to be quite a difficult player to rate because I know he's talented enough to be much higher than 9th on the ranking, and yet, you know, he doesn't really have that much success before the Overwatch League. He was like a decent player, but he was mainly known as a Zarya one-trick kind of before Overwatch League began. And then unfortunately his 21 season just got ruined because of visa issues. And so even though you know he would have been great if he was playing in 2021, it becomes hard to justify him going extremely high up on the ranking. I had him a little higher than this at 9th, but not too much higher. And it made me sad, honestly. It made me sad thinking about the fact that we didn't get to see him this year. And I just hope that, he sticks around and continues to showcase what he's made of in the future, because I think he's a great personality and a great player. And I love the dedication that he put into getting good at the very beginning of the Overwatch League. Like, he really took that opportunity in the Philadelphia Fusion very seriously and became a kind of unknown, not unknown talent, but someone you wouldn't have expected to be extraordinarily good at D.Va. And then he was just straight off the bat and continued it.
Yeah, I struggle to rank Poco for the same reasons that you pointed out. It's just the situation of the 2021 season means that I don't know. I feel like I've got a gap in terms of how I was trying to plot him within a lot of the other off tanks that I had. But there's no doubt that the guy is very skilled. He's achieved some things as well. Like I said, I mean, the same kind of criteria as Hopper, where he, a finalist, I suppose, even though I don't think he played in the finals.
Yeah, but I mean, he spent the entire...
But he spent the entire regular season getting them there, which is, again, part of it. So,
yeah, Poco was one of the hot takes I was referring to, because initially, like, I put him very highly because obviously he's been around the league forever, been on Philadelphia Fusion, been a massively successful team, I think we can say. Despite not winning everything, Philadelphia's almost always been there, besides from like their GOATs here that year they struggled like 2019, but they were still like, middle of the table kind of thing. So I rated Poco really highly, but I had to pull him down. Like, he didn't get a ton of playing time in, honestly. If you just look at the years 2019, 2020, 2021, Hotba, for example, he played 2 days, 11 hours, whereas Poco played 1 day, 11 hours. So, like, he's missing 24 hours of playtime in those 3 years. And, he was... Yes, he did bench Fury on occasions, but again, like, he was a bench player. These issues in 2021, so we didn't see him play. And then 2019, he played primarily GOATs, and he was a good off-tank player, but like I felt like, whoa, Jesus Christ.
D.Va is such a weird Frankenstein creation within the Overwatch universe. I mean, it's so strange sometimes, the bugs that happen with her.
Yeah, but to wrap up, Poco was one of the players that I initially wanted to rank high, but I actually ended up putting him at 11th, simply because I don't think there was enough play time. Whereas Hotba played like the entire time, and even though like Hotba played on Guangzhou and New York, like, he was a good player, I think, and Poco just didn't get the play time required to get up there, in my opinion.
I thought Poco was I actually had Poco a bit higher, and I actually off the eye test thought he was always an incredibly good player, and I thought his flexibility was pretty good. But he definitely did not like broach like an insanely high spot, but like definitely a higher spot. I value him pretty heavily, I think, from what I've seen from him. And like, also, even though he didn't play 2021, he still played in like contenders for like that stupid stint that the Fusion like Academy kind of did. So he did have some play time you could sort of base that off of. And to me, since he had such good results in like the 2019 and the 2020 season, like a little bit more recent than like, let's say, the inaugural season, it carries over a little bit more weight for my ranking of him, but he was not like incredibly high. And I think the play time definitely does matter, but him benching players like Fury, etc., does add a little bit more credence, I think, to like him being a bit higher on the list. And I think the overall eye test, when you watch him, I thought he was just like a really innovative player with the way he used the movement a lot of the time in particular. So I really liked watching him play a lot. So that's why I like Poco, and I think he deserves a spot in the top 10 list for sure.
Yeah.
And, Vive la Poco.
Vive. It's French.
But before we wrap up as well, I mean, you hit it on that quote, Sideshow, just like the Poco bomb. I think we can't forget that on like 2018, when the Overwatch League first started, like, Poco was one of the most entertaining off tanks to watch in the league, because he innovated the way you toss these D.Va bombs around. He always managed to get to like 2Ks, 3Ks, even like larger numbers, because of his bomb placement. And that was thoroughly entertaining to watch. So yeah, for sure, that was like iconic thing in his game. But he didn't really bench Fury though that often. Like, if you in the regular season, sure, but like if you actually look at like the stage playoffs playtime and stuff like that, he didn't get a ton of playtime in when it like really mattered in the playoffs.
What is, I mean, I was going off my memory of them swapping playtime. I remembered during the regular season that Fury was not playing full time like we might have expected. Have you got the stats to hand of like that season in total of how much they split the time? It should be on
so
the
that
Overwatch
season
website
in
somewhere.
total, I got it up right here. It's only covering off tanks though. Maybe it's a few different heroes as well. I can't remember. But for the 2020 season, Poco played 8 hours and Fury played 13 and a half hours. So that's like 60, 30 or 60, 40, that kind of stuff. But if you actually just look at the stage playoffs and you look at the NA playoffs, which Philadelphia were always competing in, Poco played 1 hour 50 minutes and Fury played 6 hours 12 minutes.
Right.
But that's more like 75-25 distribution in the playoffs.
Sure, sure. So in the bigger games, they really were opting for Fury. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a look at our next off-tank in the list. Number 8 in our top 10 off-tanks of Overwatch 1 history. It is going to be Meko.
Whoa.
One of the first players that showed what off-tank could do at the highest levels alongside the likes of Fury and Space. That's you, Connor. You said that.
I did say that. And I felt like Meko, like I said, I felt like this was going to be a more conventional ranking because, like, unlike flex support players, even though he hadn't played in 2021 and in the most recent year of the Overwatch League, he was really just kind of the gold standard for off-tank for a while. Like, this was the dude. Like, this, when you talk about, like, a reserve fiat currency of off-tanks, this was the man for one point. And so I do feel like he had to be relatively high up on the list. I think 8 or 7 around there is pretty good considering he hasn't played the most recent season. And also his time in Houston, like, he was still good, but it definitely was marred by like that play time. But who knows how much of that was just Houston being Houston at that time or his own play. But he still looked really good at Houston during that time. So he was good, a great player, very, very solid across all boards. Like, he's just a rock solid type of player that made great plays. And I think overall was one of the key persons moving forward, like how off tank could really influence how much value you can get on the map. Like his usage of Matrix, I think at the time in 2018, 2019 was very much ahead of a lot of people's. Like, it was alongside Fury in Space in terms of like pushing forward how impactful off tank could be, not just like a kill way, but also like a peel heavy way.
Yeah. Yeah, he was quite a peel heavy guy. I've got him on my top 10 as well. I think I think he does fit around the same kind of area as your Poco, honestly. No, I think so. I think he's around. So you rated Poco much lower though. So I would expect you to have Poco in the same kind of area as Meko, primarily because though Meko was one of the best off tanks for the first 4 years of the game. I mean, he wasn't for the last 2, but for the first 4 years. He won a title in 2016 when he looked like an incredibly good off tank, playing all sorts of different shit for them at IEM Kyangi. And then he's like goes throughout 2017 playing pretty well, one of the best off tanks at the time. I can't exactly remember whether he was considered the best in 2017, but he was certainly up there. And then in 2018, he's part of like the dominant NYXL team and one of the biggest reasons with like the way that they played around Jonak. So I think you've got to give him props for that and put him on that kind of list. Are you saying no in terms of him being too low or too high?
No, I rated him actually like quite high for the reasons you listed.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I actually had him number 5.
Wow.
Really
That's how
high.
high.
Okay, that's really high. I was trying to defend him thinking that you would have him like off the list, but like a respectable candidate or something. He didn't even play in 2021 or like 2020.
He didn't even play in 2021. 2020, it was a mad year for him, man.
So what? I don't give a shit if you're like a fucking 12th in the Overwatch League in like 2021 and you're just like, yeah, it's the most competitive the game has ever been, and I'm on Vancouver Titans. Like, I don't give a fucking shit. It doesn't matter. Meko was dominant for the first 4 years. Like you said, like LW Blue, okay? And
yeah, but like 7 to 8 is pretty good.
Probably why I overrated him. LW Blue were so fucking good when I was in Korea. Like, you don't understand. Like, when we used to scrim them, they had like a 9-1 win rate in scrims. And they didn't get that title. But the narrative at the time in 2017, remember, was that LW Blue were the best team. And everyone who scrimmed LW Blue, they were like, they're just like the best team with like Sabiolby. Mano came later, I think, from...
Mano was playing with Freak of Freaks Blue at the time.
They had the guy who had an injury.
Giannis.
Yeah, Janus, and he had an injury or something. And they had someone else as well.
Oh, yeah, he had a collapsed lung, actually.
A collapsed lung, that was the thing, yeah. but they were so fucking good. Like, they didn't get that title, but everyone agreed that, like, in scrims, they were like the best team around. So obviously he was dominant in like 2017. Or well, not as dominant, I guess.
He was
like,
dominant.
High
He was extremely good in the first half of
but
2017, but they also didn't play in Apex Season 4 and in like the APAC Premier kind of thing that happened. So they only really played the first half of 2017. So
yeah, they weren't dominant, but they were really good. So
yeah,
that's
they were
kind of
very
why I
good.
got him. And then as you said, like 2018, New York Excelsior in 2018, like they were fucking amazing. Like they were a juggernaut of the league. Like they were playing around in matches because they were so good. They were on the level of like San Francisco at their peak and even Shanghai Dragons at their peak. New York had that kind of domination in 2018, and Mecca was a large part of that. And in GOATS in 2019, it was not like New York was like a bad team. Like they were top 3, top 4. They weren't as good as San Francisco and Vancouver, but they were legitimately a good team in 2019. So even though his career kind of flared out, it's been rumored that most of it actually had to do with like contract negotiations. He couldn't nail that contract because apparently he asked for more money than he was going to get from any of these teams. Was on Houston Outlaws for a while, but like didn't really have the best season with them either. But like that's a long run. That's like I'd say like 3 years of like being a legitimate like top off tank. And I think that's more than some of these other players will be getting to. So I had to pay my respect to Meko. Like he's a big part of off tank history in Overwatch.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
I don't think it's unreasonable. I just feel like it's high, but it's not unreasonable. Like you can't. I'm not too mad about it. I just think it's high.
Yeah.
So.
One of the reasons that I pulled him down in my list a little bit, I have him at like a pretty similar ranking to what you have here. But one of the reasons that I didn't have him any higher was because I wasn't liking the way that he actually played on Houston. As soon as he left that NYXL system he'd been playing on the entire time, LW Blue became NYXL. They're still playing with like the majority of the same players. Once he played for Houston, there were serious individual errors in his play. He looked great sometimes, and then there was sometimes, especially when he was playing on Sigma, he just looked like he was getting outclassed by other people who were on the come up. And I felt like that season for him was not just bad because he was playing with Houston, but actually was the start of him kind of on the slip. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't have him at
I guess I
5.
didn't take that into account as much because his main tanks were Hydration and Muma. And
no, I mean, it definitely it's hard to
Linkser
differentiate it,
like
right?
that, so.
When you're looking at the team structure with like your tank players, but that's definitely why I brought him down a bit. Is that his flexibility didn't look as strong because like hero pool flexibility is really important, I think, for the off tank role, like much like the flex. And it didn't seem like his hero pool was as diverse as some of the other players I've rated above him. And he's had like, but also how much of that is because, and also his like the individual decision making, but how much was that was just the Houston disaster that was like 2020-ish.
Also,
you know,
I also want to point out that I don't mean to underrate Meko at all, but every player I've ranked above Meko, like every player I've got from 7th and above, has at least 1 year of being unbelievably elite. Kind of like Meko has had that year with NYXL. So I feel like that it's just kind of a stacked fucking list.
There are so many players that were just like elite in the off tank role. Same with the flex support role. There's a lot, you know.
Yeah.
Don't look at my list. Don't look at my list.
I'm not gonna look at your list. Did you have Meko on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within the top 15.
He was on it.
Within the top 15, okay. That's
I mean, sure.
underrated,
I mean, okay.
I think.
Not
Got
in
it.
the top 10.
Bit underrated, I think.
A
but
bit
okay.
underrated?
Little bit. But all right.
Okay, moving on. We got 7 more slots, I think, right? Coming up in here. And so there's the 7th one. There's a lot of big names that we haven't seen yet, including
I'm not worried because
a lot of names on my top 10 that I haven't seen yet.
Vicky.
It's Hawk at number 7.
Okay.
Hawk at 7?
Yeah,
Cooked
that's
up
pretty-
white boy with a little bit of swag, bust it down sexual style. Is he goated with the sauce? That's my quote. Hawk at number 7.
Hawk at 7?
Hawk at number 7. Yep.
I mean, Hawk's good, right? He had
Hawk at number
a
7.
really good contenders year and a really good this year. But he's...
Absolutely, he's number 7.
Where are the
I
other
had him a
people?
little
Because
bit
I'm
lower,
taking
but I
into
had him
account-
towards the bottom.
I'm taking into account, I had Hulk pretty high. I'm taking into account a couple of things. The fact that he had a finalist performance, and again, the most competitive year in 2021. Pretty fucking good, even though the team flopped. Okay, fair enough. But the guy he's intelligent. He's a good good off-tank player. I think obviously, I don't know. I put a lot of stock when I was making this list as well in terms of the development of off-tank, because it was something that you can point out the key figures that helped innovate and push it forwards in each year, I think. But it takes a lot to be a really good off-tank player in the modern era of Overwatch, because there's just so much to keep track of at a given time. You have to be a very rare talent to be able to compete at the highest level when you play it, which Hawk is able to do. He showcased it. I don't think he had a great year in 2020, right? That was the year he came in. But 2021, I think, showcased that when Atlanta Reign got a bit of structure behind them, the whole team just came alive. You saw that potential that was finally starting to be met with them.
But that's 1 year where he wasn't even in the top. I mean, I don't even know where you would rank him in 2021.
You would put Hawk in the top of the off-tank players after this year?
No. Sorry. I was going to say a number, but then I couldn't figure out the number. He was absolutely in the top tier, but I'm trying to think in my head, was he top 3? Was he top 5? I mean, he's 7th of all time based on basically one season in the Overwatch League. He must have been incredible. He must have been top 3.
I think Matt probably rated him really high.
No, I mean top 3 of 2021. Oh. I mean, he had to have been top 3 in the 1 year that you're saying you're ranking really highly. Otherwise, the fuck is he doing at number 7th overall?
I would say he was being in competition for the top 3 or 4 spots this year, but I wouldn't necessarily put him that high. But I do think the one thing you have to understand about Atlanta too, and part of the reason why Hawk gets points for me, I didn't have him this high. I had him a bit lower actually, but I did have him in the top 10 because his contenders was phenomenal, but obviously that doesn't mean necessarily a lot, but it adds points in terms of the context you had. Yeah. B, this year he was fantastic, but also it's not just about being fantastic. It's about how you fit into the system and the way that Atlanta was playing. And so much of Atlanta's play style was dependent on Hawk. Literally so much. When you think about the 2 players that really drove how Atlanta played in terms of how could their style work. Yes, they're DPS players where obviously you need that star power, but when you look at players like Iris and Hawk, you needed a very particular style to achieve success in the way they played versus the majority of the league. And Hawk was a master of making sure they were staying alive. He was shutting down opponents consistently. It's about how you fit into the system and how well the system works because of that player. And Atlanta's success and the system behind it doesn't work without Hawk on the off tank this year, I think. Which is why he got a lot of points for me, especially when to talk about it being a very, very tough year. It only gets harder as the year goes on. So when I add in his contenders performance, his most recent performance, and also I do think his 2020 was not good, but I think looking at him at the eye test level, his mechanics were there. It's just clear the structure and some of the coaching was not, or something to just make them figure out when the decision making has to be improved. And I do think that that's why for him, he makes a top 10 for me.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of some slander, I think, from his 2020 year. I wouldn't say it was terrible. I think it was good. It was better than average. He wasn't an okay off tank.
Yeah, it was a decent off tank performance.
Yeah, and in 2019, he was really good in contenders. He came into the 2020 season. I fucking predicted Hawk to be the rookie of the year in 2020 because he was so good in contenders. That went to shit, of course. That went out the window 2 months into the season. But that was how much hype he was getting coming into the league. He was genuinely a really good contenders prospect. And he had a good performance, I think, in 2020 and 2021, really turned the lead, one of the better off tanks in the league. So I had him a little bit lower, but I think he's a good off tank.
I think this is heinous recency bias. I'm not going to lie. Absolutely heinous recency bias. Because, I'm just trying to think through in my head whether I'm the idiot here, but I really wouldn't have ranked him top 3 from this year. He has 1 season of being good in Overwatch League, and yes, he was good in contenders. Yeah, I'm not taking that away from him. He was really good, but he has 1 season of being good in Overwatch League, and he wasn't even top 3 in his role, and he's 7th greatest of all time. Of all time! 7th greatest.
I have a feeling that Matthew Morello is at work.
I think Matthew Morello's got him at fucking Hawk at number 2 or something.
It's me. I've got him at 5. And it's yoinked him up in the rankings. And yeah, a little bit of recency bias, I'll admit. But again, like I said, I didn't think I'd have to defend myself in front of the jury on this episode.
He is good, though. He is good. I'm trying to genuinely think where I would have ranked him in the 2021 season. And it might be 4th, 5th, something like that. So he was...
Also, he was the only off-tank playing this particular style in the whole league. The way that Atlanta played, the system was dependent on Hawk generating constant value by shutting down other players all the time. It wasn't just okay, Hawk, you can go kill stuff. It's Hawk, you must be negating value from the enemy team at all times. You have to if our style is going to work. and
Yeah.
their system
It's
was
always-
built on Hawk.
It's always difficult as well, I find, for me to point the value of off tanks in the eye test, because the role that they play in a match, like often the things that you pay attention to when you're looking at how good a team is, I don't know, it always feels like a role to me that if an off tank's doing well, you don't hear about it, but if they're doing poorly, you do. You know what I mean?
To some degree, but I also think the fact that we have so many elite off tanks over the years kind of goes counter to that point. Because
No, I mean, you would not have a ton though, George. Like generally speaking, if you've peaked really highly as an off tank, generally you only have like 1 or 2 like good years. That's like most of these players have like one really good year and then maybe like one good or like an average year next to that. But like when it comes to the top tier players, these are the ones. Like that's why I rated Meko highly, because he was consistently really good across so many different years.
Yeah.
But there aren't a ton of those players around, and that's why I ranked Hawk. Like he was in my top 10. Like, because he had a really good 2021, and I think he was better in 2020 than people give him credit for.
Okay.
And he was good in contenders. So
all right, okay, let's
Josh,
see. Let's wait for fucking.
You're just scared because he's a quirked up white boy with a little bit of swag, busted down sexual style.
Let's wait for fucking Elsa and the Paris Eternal off tank to be in the top 10 of all time.
Piggy.
Piggy? You got Piggy higher than this?
Piggy should not have.
Let's go with number 6 in our top 10 off tank list.
Now who's off
Number
the group
6
now,
is Janu. Janu's synergy was the glue that took Runaway to 8 finals in 3 years. A year with Washington made silver taste sweet.
Yeah.
A little quote from you. What are you, a poet?
Yeah, I'm a
Some
poet.
poetry?
I mean, I can't just resist throwing shade at Washington Justice, even when I'm bigging up Janu there, because the Janu story. I think Janu's was sick when he played. It's a little bit of the story of like Meko kind of thing, but I think Janu's performance with the Vancouver Titans was phenomenal at keeping that team working together. And the coordination and synergy that they had was fantastic. And over the course of 3 years, they were in so many finals and won 3 of them, I think, came second in 5 of them.
You're referring to Runaway as a whole, right? Not the Titans.
No, yeah, Runaway as an entirety. Yeah. But it's the same team, it's the same roster, you know, overall. So, yeah, I think that Janu's been absolutely fantastic over that period of time. And then, you know, he's got the same kind of story as Meko, where he comes into a different team and that team is just a mess, an absolute menace. And he just doesn't look anywhere near as good. But I didn't see the same thing when I was watching Janu as I did when I was watching Meko, where I was like confused at the individual decision making. And I think the actual success that Janu was able to get was much larger than Meko's too. Even though Meko had that dominant season of Overwatch League in 2018, Vancouver Titans in 2019 were playing against much stiffer competition, still did a huge amount there. Came first in the regular season, came second overall, which is better than NYXL did in the playoffs, and made it to those like tons of other finals beforehand as well. He's a player with an extraordinarily long career when it comes to being at the absolute peak of the game. And I think he thoroughly deserves a spot in somewhere in the middle of this top 10.
Yeah, so I actually had Janu at 6. So, you know, perfect for me. And I was flip-flopping between Meko and Janu for number 5 and number 6.
Yeah.
But ultimately, just like the fact that Meko was competing in the Overwatch League in 2018 and had that dominant season, like you said, like Janu went to the grand finals, like New York Excelsior never did. But still, like Meko on that New York roster, they were like elite for 2 years straight, whereas Janu had his contenders run, played with Runaway for a bit, but he only had that one really peak year in the Overwatch League compared to Meko's 2, I'd like to say. So that was like the difference maker for me.
I mean, he was the reason that I would flip it the other way around is that even when you're talking about like the dominant year of 2017 that Meko had, Janu's team was still better. You know, like Runaway was still better than them in 2017.
Yeah,
finished higher than them in Apex
right.
Season 4, got to the finals of APAC Premier. You know, like the end of 2017 was GC Busan and Runaway. And the beginning of the year was like your LWs and like is Lunatic high grade and that kind of thing. So I think
and if the fans get upset about this one, if runaway fans come at me in the Reddit comments about, Johnny should have been top 5 over Meko, like, how dare you, Johnny? Johnny was one of those players I bumped up just for you guys, because I know how much you rate your runaway.
You guys are
fans, okay? It's the same with
you guys are
Twilight.
caving to fan
Yeah.
pressure instead of
Wait till
just
you
putting
see my
out your
top 10
opinions.
at the end.
Listen, I got Janu in top 10. I have him lower than this. So I think he was elite in 2019, deserves an automatic spot based off that, and also his previous performance into top 10. Based off his elite play in 2019, based off his previous Overwatch League experience, he deserves a spot in top 10. And also his individual mechanics were pretty good as a player. Especially, like, you could even see that towards the end of this time of Justice, even if that team was a shit show. I was wholly unimpressed outside of his presence, outside of his GOATS era. I feel like he started to hugely I personally did not like his play as much outside of the GOATS era past 2019. I know he did fine, outside of GOATS pre-Overwatch League,
right.
but it's a very different competition level and level of pace and level of just like stress, I'd say, and decision making once you get into the Overwatch League. And personally, I did not think his gameplay kept up to pass.
He's also
the
playing
GOATS
with
level in Overwatch
Washington.
League. He was, which obviously it's like, where do you rate that, right? But when I watched him play, I was like, is this guy like, is this the same player I was watching before? Like with Meko, I could still see moments where like, okay, this is the same player, even though he made like, I was gonna be like, what the fuck is he doing at times? But I don't know. I didn't rate Johnny as highly. I think he fell off a little bit past 2019. I don't think he kept up with the flexibility and kind of like the evolving sense of off tank and how much faster you had to be. But I do think that he is a top 10 player in Overwatch 1 and off tank and was a very good player. And who knows how much of that was really tangled into the Washington Justice scene. If he'd been a different team, like what might have happened to him if he had a better structure. But for my evaluation, I just felt like he was not as good towards the end of his career. But
I like where we've got him personally. I'm scared when I was making my list that I had too much bias for 2019. It was like my favorite year of the Overwatch League, watching it.
Did you have Rhea in your top 10?
No. No.
That's a good way of telling whether you're overrating 2019.
Yeah. So,
well, to be fair, that's like there's a ton of off tanks.
But I think back to 2019, and Gianni was those players that when you're thinking of the top off tanks at the time, like he's at times competing for that number 1 spot and overtaking Choi, and I guess there will be some other names below him. But yeah, I mean, the guy's accomplishments, undoubtedly, like he's achieved some very high marks in his career, but unfortunately trapped in a roster prison, which kind of pulled him down a couple of marks for me when it came to like his most recent seasons. But as I've already said, I think 6 is a good place for him. I don't hate this whatsoever.
Here's where I get nervous, because I have 7 players and we have 5 spots to go. And have I messed up?
Wait a second.
I will tell you, on average, Johnny, it feels like there's a huge culture divide in the boomer brain versus the zoomer brain so far in the rankings.
Wait, no, we still have 6 spots, don't we?
Yeah, no, 5.
We have 5 spots.
We're at number
4,
5
3,
coming up.
2,
We're
1.
at 5.
Who
coming
the
up.
hell
players.
have we missed off this list? There are 6 obvious spots that have to be in the top 10.
I feel like you could make a rascal rant about one of these players.
Okay.
I'm gonna lose my
We'll see.
shit. I don't even know
Number
who
5.
you could have left off the top 10.
Number 5.
Actually, I know who it is. You fucking
Number 5.
history deniers.
Number 5 in our top 10 off tanks. It's Space.
Yeah.
The best Western off tank and best hair in the league behind Krillin. Whenever he struggled, he improved his play and hero pool. That's a little Avast quote right
There's
there.
longer to that, but yeah, I mean that. I think I actually might have. Did I have him higher than this? Or no, I had him at 5. Yep.
I had him at 5th as well. I think this is perfect.
I think he was the kind, like, definitely by far, like, the best Western off tank for sure, as proved by history at this point. He's, even when he had moments that he struggled, I think in previous seasons, he came back, had a resurgence, and his hero pool is great, huge depth. You can put him on anything, feel happy that he's going to pop off on it. And also, I think something to me that showed a lot of worth comparatively is that, when he did have struggles too, he did never. A lot of times, older players will sometimes lose that passion, or they won't try to improve anymore. They're kind of resting on their laurels. And Space was clearly someone that continued to grind to get better and continued to try to round out the issues in his gameplay. And I think that he is definitively a top 5 tank in the game, and is just overall great. Just a fantastic player, a good presence in the scene too. And like I said, the best hair in the league behind Krillin. So if he had a mullet, he would have the best hair. So.
I love that you mentioned that about that drive to improve as well, because so many players end up losing that passion for one reason or another. It's like a normal part of being, a pro player when you're committing your time and energy and your entire life to something. But that is one of the defining factors when I think of Space as a player, is that the guy just never stops the grind and the improvement. I'm sure he's had moments of weakness where he's like, who doesn't, when they're committing their livelihood to something. But yeah, he fits that to a T in my mind whenever I've thought about his play, and he's kept up. As the demands of the role of off tank have gotten more and more over the years, he's stayed near the top. And I mean, in my opinion, he's reached his peak in 2021 when it's got its hardest. The guy has performed at an incredible level over the course of his career. He's delivered so many great moments to us as well. I do think he deserves this spot.
Yeah, but it's not just 2021. I think that's also an important part when you're considering, greatest of all time. The guy was on the come up in 2017, and then 2018 he wins that stage title in stage 4 with the Valiant, and he's overall just performing at a really high level throughout that latter portion of 2018. So, not only has he got the later years where he really grew and developed and became this top-level player, especially after that World Cup performance. But even before that, he was very well respected as being a top-level off-tank. So I think he's got the pedigree as well as some of the title accomplishments, and fits the eye test really well, very flexible. He's got the full package to be in the upper half, the 5 through 1 of this list. And I think this is a great spot for him to be in.
Oh, I guess I had a smidge of a hot take then, because I actually put him below Meko and Jono, because
I think that is a hot take.
Because I think you're being a bit too nice about his flexibility, because there were times where Gladiators had to swap in a DPS player to play Zarya because Space couldn't do it. Don't get me wrong, Space is an amazing diva, really good Sigma as well, but there were some flexibility concerns with him on the off tank role.
I think that's kind of revisionist, though, because the reason they did that is because they had a player that was arguably one of the best Zaryas in the entire world on it. It's not like
I mean,
Mirror was fucking amazing.
Chill your fucking beans there.
Mirror
one of the best Zaryas in the world.
I feel like if you don't recognize how good Mirror Zarya was, I don't know. He was an amazing Zarya. Do I think his decision making was the best necessarily? No, but his overall mechanics were insane.
Zarya, one of the best in the world.
He legitimately never demonstrated that at the Overwatch League level. It was all based on what he'd done in NA contenders playing GOATs.
I mean,
all of it was based on that.
It's way more fun listening to Avast if you just imagine that he's been paid off the entire time. It's so much fun. Really.
What are you doing?
Go back and listen to it.
You're putting 2 players that haven't played in the league in 2 years, and all that have had mediocre performances for the end of their career, over someone that's had consistently great performances.
No, I agree. I agree with the vast overall point. I was only blanching at the idea of calling.
And also, I still think the Mirror point stands. It's just he had a rough year in the Overwatch League. I'm going to say I still stand by it.
The sun just appeared in our studio. One of the lights just turned up to 100%. Here's one of the other reasons, though, that I think that point might be a little redundant, the flexibility, because the longer somebody plays in Overwatch as an off-tank, the more that's asked of them. So if you have a player that's only been good for a single year, they probably only had to play a single hero. There aren't that many years in Overwatch where you had to play multiple heroes at any point. And so if I'm thinking about even the players that you've mentioned, like Meko and Janu, did Meko and Janu have amazing Zaryas? I don't think so. I just don't even think it was asked of them, because their teams just played Diva pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, but I'm an unfair judge, and so there you have it. That's just how it is. Also,
it's an interesting
another thing. I'm just revealing my hand. Another reason why I did Space a bit dirty here was also because he didn't find the same degree to dominant success that those people had, but that's not his fault. I think Space generally was a bit unlucky because he was part of the 2019 Valiant that was very tumultuous with a bit of a divide within the team, and obviously them benching Costa, that didn't really help them out either, and all that stuff going on. 2020, I think that's Space took a lot of collateral damage from having to play with OG, who didn't gel in and fit in with that team at all. And as such, it looked like OG was feeding a lot of the time, and him and Space weren't on the same page. So that's where I sort of did Space dirty in that sense, where he was on a couple of teams that really struggled to find their groove and find chemistry, and that's not his individual fault. But the end of the day, I guess I took that little bit into account. So I don't disagree, with you guys too much. I think that you could put Space in 5 and 6, and I don't mind if you guys did it. So I just personally ranked him a bit lower because I think Janu and Meko had higher peaks with their teams, and I think they were very beyond elite. I think they had higher peaks than Space did relative to the other off tanks at their point in time.
All right.
4 slots left for our off tanks.
5 players, 4 slots.
What do you mean 5 players?
Who am I going to mold
You're
about?
saying there's 5 players.
I am, and also, there's no way that you rated one of them above Space. So you've just forgotten about this player.
Yeah.
He was in my top 10. I know it is.
I'm going to put a caveat here. I remember now after I made the list, because I had a really busy weekend and doing shit with work and all this other stuff. I did totally forget one player, but there was a reason for it, but I did forget them. So I will admit that. I will say I did forget one player on this list, but there was a reason.
If it's who I think it is, I've got him at 13.
Okay, possible. Anyway, we'll discuss afterwards.
Top the fourth of our off-tank list. I'm calculating the numbers.
Late Young.
Number 4 is Hanbin. Hanbin possessed the skill set to establish himself as a top 2 off-tank of all time, had it not been for owl age restrictions. That's coming straight from you, Johnny. And
I don't disagree, honestly.
I do not disagree with that.
The guy was absolutely elite. It's just that a lot of the stuff was in contenders.
Johnny.
Thank you.
I think you came up with that last week when Josh wasn't here, Bren. So, or maybe it was Curtis said it, but. Yeah, if it's my quote, Josh, then it's my time to talk.
Yeah,
okay, I'm holding the
rule.
You literally just butted in,
holding the silly stick.
Yeah. You've lost all your hair because your testosterone levels are too high, and now you're just busted into the conversations.
What can I say? I'm a Giga Chad.
Okay, Johnny, let's finish your talking stick moment.
Hanbin V good only played 2 years. Here we go.
Fair.
No, that was great elaboration.
I think you could have.
He had a good run on Element Mystic too. Don't get me wrong. And that Element Mystic team was really fun to watch in Contenders. That was one of the primary reasons I used to watch Korean Contenders. Actually, was that Element Mystic team when they played like a lot of Sombra and that kind of stuff. And Hanbin was, of course, part of that. But really good on Paris Eternal. Won on stage with them and super dominant in 2021. So what more is there to say? Like it's a shame we didn't see more of him in the Overwatch League in 2018, 2019.
Yeah, very good player. I think you could have made the argument. I actually had him at like 1 spot higher, I think. Because I thought his overall performance from Element Mystic to his past 2 years of Overwatch League were so good, and his flexibility was great too. Another player where I wouldn't mind to put him on a variety of different roles. I just felt really, really confident in this guy, and I think his overall decision making, everything, as that happens.
I don't remember that happening live.
But he's a really talented player. Overall, super well rounded. I think young talent too. So it's a shame we don't get to see more of him, but very good player.
But what we did get to see was amazing, and I'm so glad that we did, as well. Like, being able to reunite this Element Mystic core for the Dallas Fuel, and to be able to see what he was capable of when he played for Paris Eternal. I mean, just 2 fantastic teams there that he's been able to play on as part of that core that got moved up from Contenders. It's been awesome, and we were talking a while back. I think it was when we had Albert on the show, and we were having a conversation about where Hanbin fit in the all-time list. This was before we even decided to make one. It was just a throwaway comment, and Albert just off the top of his head was like, "Yeah, Hanbin's probably about number 3." And so I can't disagree with you as well, Connor. I think it's about 4-3 somewhere around there. Hanbin's elite.
Yep. I loved Hanbin's play. I think fitting into the system of Dallas Fuel as well with the reuniting of the Element Mystic squad. Dallas Fuel, they were a hive mind in 2021. Like, with their playstyle as well, the comps that they were playing, in particular, you needed complete coordination across the board, and that means you need complete awareness from Hanbin. He was so consistent over the course of 2021 and won a bunch of titles as well. Some of the minor tournaments, obviously, but a ton of accomplishments underneath him, and when he was playing in Contenders. So I had him at number 3, I believe. I don't. I'm feeling pretty good about this, but we got 3 slots left, Josh, and you're.
Listen, one of them's simply not made it at this point. He should have been somewhere around the middle, and he's just gone. He's just gone. He's just evaporated.
Number 3, the off tank list.
I'm pretty sure I know which one Josh is talking about too.
It's Fury. As an individual, Fury exploded into 2018 with his raw talent, winning a championship and World Cup. 2020 was another incredible year with the Fusion. That's from you, Josh. Your time to talk.
It is. My time to talk then, huh? Have I got the talkie stick?
Yep.
I mean, Fury's one of those players that is extremely highly ranked without much going on before the Overwatch League. That's the big thing to consider when you're talking about Fury. He really was just... 2018, he came on to the scene and he was playing some DPS stuff, some off-tank stuff. And then with this first roster in 2018, he just looked insane. And these clips obviously are from his time on the Fusion, where, again, like Jonathan was talking about earlier, the stage finals, the big games, he's just a monster. 2019, the entire team was struggling with GOATs in general, but the biggest reason for having Fury this high, in my opinion, is the talent, the eye test of watching him and going, what the fuck? This guy is nuts. Because he produces those moments like nobody else. I think if you were ranking in pure, I don't know, like highlight reels or something, he might be number one, but he doesn't have that, accomplishments over a large period of time and some of the other things that the number one and number two spot we'll talk about afterwards. But he is just nuts to watch, and he's already, he's got a championship. He won that World Cup. The 2020 season as well from the Fusion, I think sometimes people underrate it a little bit. They finished number one in the regular season in North America, above the San Francisco Shock. They were absolutely dominant in the West. And then they just flopped when they went to that finals. But that doesn't mean that they weren't insane all year long. And Fury is a large part of why they were. He was, of course, trading playtime with Poco, but Fury maintained his position as insanely good for that year.
Yeah, I mean, I desperately wanted to put Fury number 2, but I had to calm down my inner bias, and I put him at number 3. I think we sometimes forget how good he was in 2019 as well, even though that team struggled with GOATs and figuring that out. Fury individually was really good on that team as well. And Philadelphia Fusion, like you said, in 2020, Fury wasn't just a really good player on the Fusion at that time. He was instrumental, in those big games, in the stage playoff games. He was fucking amazing. I remember watching him. I wonder if it was that Paris Eternal series in Summer Showdown.
Yes,
or
the Summer Showdown when he was playing
but,
Sigma and Alarm was on Brig. Oh,
dude, those rocks he hit, the rocks he hit on Sigma at that time, he was fucking amazing. He was the best player on the Fusion, and they were a top team in NA. So that's 3 really top tier elite years from him on that role. And yes, he didn't have the best of years on Washington Justice, but those were 3 really important years for the off-tank role. And keep in mind, in 2018, the shit he did on D.Va was revolutionary. Do you guys remember that highlight when he did a 180 and ate Baby Bay's grab or something? Yep. And Baby Bay is just in awe, he's never seen anything like it. No one had seen anything like it. No one had done 180 Matrix eats and just predict the grabs coming out like he did. He just made shit up. He revolutionized.
I mean, he hardcore gapped everybody in 2018.
Yep.
There was.
He did.
Who was even?
I don't think there was
best,
many of it. I mean, Meko.
I mean, it was pretty much Meko.
But he was
here it
so
is.
much better.
Look at this shit. I mean, this was ridiculous, man. The turn away to bait the grab and he flicks around just in time off the audio cue. It's absurd.
Nuts.
It's actually absurd. I remember watching this. I remember watching this and just thinking, what have I just witnessed? This guy's a freak.
But it wasn't a one-off as well. Fury would do that kind of shit.
It was so consistent. And
regularly.
This is why I had Fury so high up. Obviously, all the reasons you guys listed. But he was I want to call him an innovator in 2018. But the thing is, the shit he was doing was not replicatable for most people. It's like he overclocked his brain to play off-tank. Because his decision-making, his awareness, he was playing the game with cheats or some shit. He was looking with the overhead view, the bird's eye view. He just had complete awareness of what was going on in some games. A very, very rare talent that was just undeniable and still is undeniable when you watch him play, even though he was in that later roster prison of Washington. And it's also kind of funny how many times we've said that about players who end up in Washington in the later stages.
It's where the elites go to die, apparently. Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not much more to be said. The guys at Monster, I think He potentially, I actually kind of struggled a bit of like, I actually had him like one spot lower just because it was another player where it was tough to disentangle his place with Justice and his place like on the list in terms of like, does he deserve number 3, deserve number 4? Because like it's another player where like, how much does the team structure add to this, right? Like how much does it take away from the player? And it's so hard to know because I'm not listening to their fucking comms. I'm not in their structure. But like, if there's one player I would give the benefit of the doubt to that the team probably ruined them, it would be Fury. And because also he's working with the Justice, and the Justice is like the team ruiner. So like, sure, like go right ahead. Like it's like fine. Like Fury probably can get number 3 spot. I wouldn't even be mad if someone put him higher than 3. Honestly, that good. I wouldn't be that mad. But 3 is pretty fair.
It's very tough to knock the top 2 off their spots, though.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, it's
hard.
almost impossible. I think if you gave this list to pretty much anyone, they'd have the same people
The 1
in
and
the top
2
2.
must be
Yeah,
the same.
the 1 and
Like,
2 would be pretty long.
I think you could swap the order around, though.
with variation, sure.
I think
Yeah.
you can swap the order around,
You
which
could
is why
swap
I'm
the order
interested for
around.
this.
Yeah, okay. Number 2 of the off tanks, or top 10 off tanks. This is number 2 coming at you, live and fast. It is going to be Choi Hyobin at number 2. The most successful and accomplished off tank in Overwatch history, and one who excelled in Goats, Double Shield, and Dive. That's a quote from Jonathan.
Wow. Well, I mean, I put him at number 1 personally.
Hey, I mean,
because you can probably
just do
tell by the quote, I just couldn't knock him off. I'm sorry. It's interchangeable. You flip back and forth. I'm not gonna say who, but one of the people on Plat chat asked to do it right before the episode because
Yeah,
we
that
always
was
back
me.
and forth. And okay, well, there was Bren.
Yeah,
but like it's that close.
You flip-flop between
can't
the...
go
well,
wrong.
I don't think it got recorded
Oh.
because
No,
I didn't
no,
give Kurt
no,
enough
no.
time.
It
I didn't
already
give Kurt
was
enough
done.
heads up.
Yeah.
So I
I'm
wanted
pretty
to put
sure it
Choi.
wouldn't have changed the rankings.
No.
I don't think it would, no, because it's like a difference of a single point. So
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to change it. But, yeah, go
I
ahead.
mean, Jonathan, tell me why you think Choi Hyobin's the best, because it is an insanely valid opinion. He's just done so much.
I mean, part of the reason is honestly that like he won 2 Overwatch League championships, and like that is the difference compared to Void. I mean, he was super good in Goats in 2019. He was super good in the double shield composition as well, being able to play with that with the San Francisco Shock, and he can play these Winston compositions as well with Smurf on the San Francisco Shock. Like that. He's so flexible, can play all the comps at a top tier level. He was always like a carry performer for this team, never let them down, never one of the weaker points. Even this year, he did struggle a little bit in 2021, them trying to figure out what the San Francisco Shock was early on. You know, there were some times where he would honestly like straight up feed a little bit, like overextend, trying to do too much in the 2021 season. But like, apart from that, like straight up like a carry off tank on the most successful team in Overwatch history. I don't know. I'm just using like big words and big lingo because that is what Choi Hyobin deserves. It almost sounds so vague when I say it, but like, what else can you say? Like he was just.
He's got all the markings of a player that should just be GOAT category. You know what I mean? Just up there in terms of or GOAT candidate, because back-to-back champions, as you said, but also I view him as like an innovator. I think. When I said that it was like up in the air in 2019 with him and Janu in terms of the off-tank play, Choi Hyobin was the one who was actually pushing that forward within Goats the most, and people were learning from him. Yeah. Like in terms of his positioning, how he took off angles, his prioritization of like who he would damage as well, and how he would, essentially it's...
Especially though when it got to Sigma in the playoffs.
Yep.
The guy was just the guy gapped Janu when it came to the end in the playoffs. He was just nuts on that brand new hero. It's crazy.
Absolute innovator. And so I wanted to put him at number 1 with my list. And I think it is hard to try and have that toss up as well with the other player who has made the number 1. But yeah, I mean, what an unbelievable talent, seriously, across his entire career. Even, as you said, Johnny, the most recent year. Like, the Shock underperformed, but I never walked away from a game thinking, oh, Choi fed that game or whatever. His consistency was just unmatched.
Yeah. I really can't recall any game where I would have thought it was his fault they lost, but I can think of many where I can think of, oh my God, I think Choi carried that game.
Yeah.
I mean, especially, yeah. The other thing too is that he wasn't just good in 2019. He was a talent that people were keeping their eye on pre-Overwatch League too. He was one of those players in the tier 2 system when he was playing with X6 where people were like, this guy's going to be good. Like, watch out for him. He was impressive in the tournaments he played. And then when he came into OWL, he fulfilled his potential. So he's got like that smattering of like prehistory thrown in there as well, even though the team didn't really accomplish too much. He's been playing for a while and had those two just phenomenal seasons. I think he's one of the candidates. If we did like a greatest of all time across the whole of Overwatch, he'd be one of the names you throw into the hat to have a discussion about, for sure.
Sure.
Even if he's not at number one on our list, he's number one for some of us. And so I think you have to throw him in the list there because he's one of those people that just won both the championships, was insane with the San Francisco Shock. He has a direct ticket to that conversation with people like Violet, for example.
Yeah, but how many of those people that are in like the top 3 of these role lists would not make that potential greatest of all time just across Overwatch conversation? Like, just to be considered, right?
Well, the reason that I bring it up, though, is because he's number 2 here, but he would still be in that conversation because I think that 1 and 2 is so close. I think, with our other lists, probably for main support and flex support, your number 2 of the list might not actually be in that conversation. I mean, maybe they would, like, Moth on main support or something like that, but I don't think it's that valid, honestly. I think here it really is. Like, Choyobin, even if he was number 2, still has that contention in the conversation about it because it's so debatable whether he should be 2 or 1 in this list.
That's very fair. I actually have nothing else to add to Troy because like because essentially I just want to talk about the number 1. Like, there's nothing else to say about Troy. Like, he's just a monster. Like, there's really nothing else. Just go to number 1.
Yep. Okay. Number 1, the top off tank of Overwatch 1 history, according to us, the experts, the finest minds in Overwatch. God help you all. Number 1 is Void, of course. Void has the history, the talent, the accolades to be the best off tank in Overwatch history and make a case for overall GOAT. That's from you, Josh. You now have the talking stick again.
Yeah. I mean, again, that conversation, just that final sentence being that he would be in that conversation for overall greatest of all time. But if we're speaking specifically about off tanks, why do I have him above Choyobin when he doesn't have 2 championships? Well, for starters, he has 1, which is pretty fucking good. But also, they've made it to so many of these big finals, the Shanghai Dragons. They had an insane 2020 year, dominated APAC, insane 2021 year. They've just booked their ticket to all of these smaller stage finals. Choyobin, for reference, has made it to 5 of the stage finals since being in the Overwatch League, and so it's somewhat comparable between them. And then Void additionally has all of this elite history even before joining the Overwatch League. I mean, that to me pushed it over the edge, in my opinion, because Overwatch League to Overwatch League, probably Choyobin edges it out just by virtue of him having that extra championship. It's really hard to argue against having 2 championships. But to me, the reason that Void pushed it ahead was, not only am I a little Void simp and the eye test I just cream when I watch him, but the pre-OWL stuff that he was able to accomplish with like the Kongdu teams, he just looked fantastic at the end of the like pre-OWL era too. He looked like he had all of that ready to go, boom, straight into the Overwatch League. And so that's why I pushed him over the line. I think everything he does, he just looks immense at. His Zarya, his Diva, the Sigma, the positioning that they take. I think it's defined how the Dragons have played over these last 2 years. They wouldn't be the Dragons without Void. They'd be, I don't know, maybe they'd play maybe more like a Dallas or something where it was really heavily around that main tank. But even when they had Fearless, it was about Fearless making space for them to take those positions and like dominate areas with Void. And that to me is the turning point. You've got a guy on your team that defines your play style, and you're already one of the most winning franchises in the Overwatch League.
Yeah, this is one of the interesting things too, is that like we talk about achievements. I actually don't like achievements. To me, I don't really like they matter, but I don't ever actually think about like what the player, like I don't really care if a player, like I got a perfect stage. Does that mean I was a great player? Like achievements don't matter that much to me. It's more so your place in earning those achievements, which obviously it's like semantics because obviously Void did have a huge role in all those, but I never really consider that when I think about like these placements here. But I do think Void overall, the number one thing is that like he's number one because I feel like I have never once in my years of watching the Overwatch League, and I'm not even really counting the pre-Overwatch in this. I can't even think of a moment where I was like, Void did not play this nearly perfectly, like every time. Like, and that's the difference between him and Choi. Literally the biggest thing between him and Choi, it's not pre-Overwatch League, it's not anything else. It's that Void literally just made so few mistakes as a player, especially towards the latter half of his career, the past 2 years, that you simply could you're just like, I can't find anything wrong with what he's doing. Like I can't find the wrong thing that the wrong play he's making here. While Choi, I could still be like, okay, he made a human error. It's like he's a human playing versus a bot, and like the human made an error. While Void, I'm just like, this is the chess bot. This is the guy, like this is the man, like playing like the game at literally a level you can't even comprehend. So that's really the number one reason that he made it to the number one spot, because he just made less errors. He made but it's not just talking about like making less errors, it's about making so few errors against a player that already makes so few errors that it's almost like an inhuman amount of like no errors.
I don't have much else to say. You guys have taken all the talking points.
Yeah, I think he's genuinely one of the greatest of all time players that we have in Overwatch 1. I think he's the level of perfection that Connor's speaking about is what made me such an insane Void fan across 2020 and 2021.
I will say as well, what was insane about Void was that even when he was playing on the Gladiators and they weren't having great performances, normally the off tank is a role where you just go down with the ship, where if your team isn't performing well at instances, it showcases in your own play, because it's not that you're playing very reactionary, but it is based as well off of the timings of which you can get aggressive on for example, when you're playing Diva, are quite contingent on your team having good coordination and that being well synced up. But yeah, I mean, even still, even when Gladiators were looking at their lowest, Void was still looking like an unbelievable freak when it comes to the off-tank play, which is it's a clear tell sign, I think, that just an unbelievable player.
Yeah, he also, if memory serves, he came in partway through the 2018 season to replace Bishu, right?
I think so, yeah.
Is that correct? Because the Gladiators previously had...
Yes, he came to replace Bishu, so he did.
I seem to remember at the time thinking, oh my god, what an upgrade. Even by then. The thing with Void is, I can't think of a year when he played poorly at all, even when he was on... like a middling team like the Gladiators.
And the thing is,
finished fifth
Gladiators
that year.
also wasn't even like bad. Like, I think the difference is we're examining players that were really good that had to go to talent jails like Justice and Houston, while Gladiators in like 2018 was not bad. They weren't like a bad team. They were a pretty good team. Like realistically, technically, Void has never had to go to a true soul-sucking gulag situation.
No, I mean, the Gladiators is the closest to that, and it wasn't that. But he hasn't had a bad year since 2017. Yeah. 2017, insanely good. 2018, pretty good. 2019, pretty damn good. 2020, oh my god. 2021, holy fuck. It's like this guy's just got an insane resume over an extraordinary length of time.
Also, think about how varied those playstyles are. Think of the difference from 2019 Dragons to 2021 Dragons. Like the difference in playstyle he had to play with the triple. It was just wild. There's just crazy shit. Like there's so much crazy shit going on when you really think about. I guess he was Glad still 2019, not Dragons, but 2020 Dragons, 2021 Dragons, I should say, and then 2019 Gladiators to going all the way. Like there's just so many playstyles. Like the Troy Open argument. It's just he's been good across so many metas. Just so many metas. He's been good.
I guess one of the last things, just to talk about Fury as well, like some of the biggest praise you can ever get as a player is this year, I feel like he didn't get the credit he deserved because we were genuinely bored talking about how good it was. In 2020, he was an MVP candidate. He was that good.
Yes.
We were considering him for MVP. And in 2021, he probably deserved to be an MVP candidate again, but we were generally bored of the narrative of talking about how good Void was. So that's one of the highest praise you can get. Which is someone's so good that you're bored of talking about how good they are. And I feel like Void actually fell into that this year.
Yeah, I mean, he was just exactly as good as he was last year. I think he was absolutely nuts.
All right.
But, I mean, that also means that you've all collectively trolled. You've
Collectively trolled?
You've all collectively trolled
Why?
me
There's a player
and
left off your
Yep.
off the
There's
list.
one
you've all
player.
collectively
Okay,
trolled.
well,
one
let's
player I
take a
forgot,
look
I
then.
will
We've got our final top 10. Let's take a look at the list. There it is, and we can see the points here being distributed out. There you go. You can see who made
We
the list. in
did.
certain
We
areas.
actually forgot him.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, oh, you mean no? You're talking about somebody different. Okay.
Who am I thinking of?
Wait, no. Who are you thinking
Elsa?
of, mate?
I'm thinking
Oh,
of
Elsa's
Daco.
15.
You're thinking of who?
Daco.
Darko.
Daco.
Okay, I mean, that's not where I was going in the slightest. But I mean, Darko was a good player, but I didn't
I
think.
wasn't talking about for top 10 though, like in the top 15. Considered.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't crack my top
Okay.
15 particularly. The
Punk
player
is
I'm
there.
talking about, the player you fucking trolled us all with, you've all forgotten about China. Bloody Lei Young absolutely
I have
deserves to
Lei
be
Young.
on.
Oh, I had Lei Young.
He did. I think Matthew
not top
Morello
10, though.
has just taken the hardline American approach of saying that China doesn't exist. I think he's a conspiracy theorist. I think he doesn't believe that anything east of the fucking UK exists at all, and he's just
But
has forgotten him
competition was
completely.
I had Late Young 11.
Okay, I'm gonna put a cry out into the world for Late Young just for a moment, because if you're talking about people with a large period of time that they've played the game for and done really well and pushed the game forward, that kind of shit. I mean, Lei Young has been playing the game since the dawn of China. Since China came into the scene at all, Lei Young has been at the forefront of that. And he dipped off, sure, in like the 2020 season or whatever, where Elsa's playing the vast majority of the time and people are questioning, is Lei Young even, is he even any good? But his 2021 season, to me, proved that he's still there and deserves the credit for being able to stay at the top since the very beginning of the game all the way through to the very end of the game. I mean, his career literally spans the beginning all the way to the end, and he was at the top of Chinese Overwatch at the beginning and at the top of Chinese Overwatch at the end. And it's not like China's some fucking tiny region. I mean, they still were really successful at various different points. He's got to be above some of these players. I mean, he just dwarfs people like Hawk in terms of his career length, for starters.
I mean, but length doesn't. I mean, I will admit that
It
he's had.
does matter for greatest of all time.
But he wasn't that good for all of it, though. He was pretty good in 2021. 2020, he was okay. Like, I mean, like, I feel like when I watched him in 2020, I was like, he definitely was a huge contributor towards like Chengdu being like, oh, this is kind of silly champ, what I'm witnessing here. But like 2021, he was fantastic. And because of the length of his career plus his 2021, he earned an 11th spot. You could argue that he should be in the 10 firmly, and I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be mad if he's going to be 10. I'm not mad about that, but the length of the career is largely irrelevant to the conversation if he's not good.
But he is good. He was good at the beginning of the game. Absolutely. He's already got that kind of like, you've got like Zumba here at 13th, right? Collectively. Yeah, Zumba's an absolute legend of the game, but also fell off a fucking cliff when it came to Overwatch League performance, right? Yeah, and that's why we didn't have him in our top 10, because he is a goddamn legend, innovated, World Cup fucking grab through the window, etc., 2 Apex tournament titles. I mean, he has like some huge shit, but then just fell off a cliff when it came to Overwatch League performance. The thing is, Lei Young's got that domestically within China and was still competitive at like the world scene when he was playing within APAC tournaments too. Like Miraculous Youngster were like coming second to the top Korean teams when they were playing anytime they got to play against them. They were doing insanely well. And then he still managed to remain competitive and then above average performance. I don't even know where you would rank him, but he's got to be significantly above average in 2021. Somewhere in the probably the bottom of the upper third in 2021.
Okay. You're going on your rant. I'm sorry to interrupt. This was a legendary rant, by the way. Really good rant.
It was.
Like, one of the better ones we've had since my
Yeah.
Rascal rant. We gotta give you credit there. But yes, he was done dirty. by the Shanghai Dragons because he should have been on that 2018 roster. He was the best off-tank in China in 2017. His Zarya was legendary, and everyone just couldn't wait to see him actually play on a global competitive scene because he was just farming teams in Chinese contenders in Overwatch Premier Series 2017.
Where MMG.
And also, I do want to point out that he's
MG42.
not good. Like, not good. Like, Lei Young was obviously good. It's just he didn't put a lot of. It never really showed too much in Overwatch League besides 2021. But he was good.
That
Pre-Overwatch
was.
League, for sure.
I am one of the offenders, Sideshows. If you want to be mad at someone, be mad at me. But that was one of the reasons. Okay, 2017, he was really good on that Zarya. He didn't play. Chill out. Let me finish my fucking talking points. 2018 didn't play in the league. 2019 didn't play in the league. 2020 only played like 25% of the game for Chengdu. 2021 was benched before Elsa retired because he got tired of Chengdu Hunters. Like overall, yes, recency bias. I think that Lei Young was really good on this year on Chengdu Hunters, but Elsa was honestly like the better off tank between the two for Chengdu Hunters these past couple of years.
Well, no, he just got played more. I think actually 2021, anytime
you're sitting here and you're arguing that Lei Young deserved better than to be benched by Elsa because you think he was better.
I feel
Well,
like
yeah, I think he was better.
Zarya was definitely better. I don't think his D.Va.
His D.Va was definitely better. You're telling me this year, okay, the only year where you have comparison of both of them playing, you're telling me Elsa was better.
I think I'm not going to say that Elsa's D.Va the entire year was better than, but holistically, Elsa's D.Va was better than Lei Young.
It just got more playtime. It wasn't better.
They did hit their stride after Elsa retired, but that was because of many reasons.
Yeah,
that was
there's
also
a lot of different
for
reasons
example,
other than a Lei Young coming in.
Leave turned it on like middle of the summer showdown on. Like he was good early on as well, of course, because that they went to the main melee and stuff like that. But like Leave turned on his MVP performances, I think, somewhere like at the start of the summer
Also,
showdown.
their tempo increased heavily.
Monk was a fantastic Zenyatta in the summer showdown. No, sorry, I confused it. Leave got really good in the June joust. Sorry, my bad. But then also Monk, they started having really good Zenyatta performances. That was the style that really made Chengdu Hunters flourish towards the end of the year. And I think they really hit that stride after Elsa had already retired. So was Lei Young a large part of them getting good towards the latter half of the year? Sideshow is arguing so. I just don't think there was enough meat on the bone there.
I agree. I also, who knows if
couldn't.
Elsa had continued to play, like what his Zarya like potentially would have added to that squad, right? Like if he had been playing for them, like we don't know.
Elsa, the well-known Zarya player.
But the thing is, we don't know. We don't know what it would have happened. So like, sure, Lei Young, I agree, had a very good end of 2021, very good pre-Overwatch League. But I actually, so this is a meme. This is a meme, but not a meme. People used to think I hated Punk. At the end of this year, I'm not gonna lie, I actually really liked Punk's play. Like I did so because I argued against Punk and he played over Gableshee because I was like, I think Gableshee should be being played because he was so good at contenders. Like I'd like to see more Gableshee, and Punk kept getting playtime, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to see this, and I kept on seeing Punk more and more and more, and the more I watched, I was like, actually, Punk's pretty fucking good and flexible. Like I was really impressed.
My list.
I think the only person that I should have probably put around the 15th is maybe like Gargoyle potentially.
I also think you're all forgetting Michelle too.
I revisited Michelle. I was a Michelle simp. I revisited Michelle, and I went back and I think I was wrong. So I actually didn't end up liking Michelle too much.
I think Michelle books a ticket automatically to any top 15 because they played in a team where they dominated APAC, dominated China with that Ardeon team.
6.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Lei Young's career. Lei Young's career dwarfs most
high.
of these players.
He only had
Young
one
6.
year in the Overwatch League, and most of his career was like pre-Overwatch League like stuff. He had essentially 3 years of absence, and he had 1 year where he was pretty good. I would say very good. His style play was important, but I don't know. I think he was good.
This looks like a Mr. X list.
Chinese fans hit me up.
You had Zumba at 10.
Chinese fans hit me up.
And also, Zumba being at 10.
Zumba at top 10.
Because I'm rating greatest of all time. I'm not rating greatest of 2021. That's
Zumba
why
wasn't even
Hawk
one
is
of the
not in the
best players
top
in season
10.
one, though. He wasn't even one of the best. he wasn't even one of the best off tanks in season 1. He was a good off tank, but he wasn't even one of the best in season 1.
He was insane in 2016 and 2017, and then average in 2018 and 2019.
Okay, 2016 was like from fucking October on, okay? Because Apex Premier was the first real tournament with Lunatic High, and we fucking beat those fuckers. So, okay, you got Apex Season 1. That's 2016 for you guys who just simp over Korean players or that. Okay, but here's the thing. Pre-Owl, if you simp about Pre-Owl, you have 2017. That's 1 year. And so realistically, there is no fucking Pre-Owl. There's just 1 year compared to one great year in Owl. I would argue one great year in Owl is better than all of Pre-Owl. Because
Overwatch
honestly,
League is like a
people overrate
seasoning.
Pre-Owl.
You put it over the dish once you're done, and you're like, ooh, look, it's gotten a lot better when you include the seasoning. But you're not fucking dumping salt packets into your mouth. Like I don't fucking want
No. Yeah, I think I think also what you're not factoring in that I am is that these are the people who built how these roles are going to be played. People like Hawk are standing on the shoulders of giants. Genuinely, they are.
Like Mickey.
They don't have to learn how the game's played. They just watch other people and can absorb all of that information within a month. The things that took these previous people a year to develop, like these new players can just learn in a month. On the come up, you learn it just by playing the ladder. You get a year's worth of learning in fucking 2 weeks of just playing ladder. The rate of acceleration is vastly better in the later years. And so to be elite at the beginning of the game requires a whole different skill set. And to be able to carry that in and still be decent as the game develops in like 2018, 2019 is
I hope
something
to see this
that I think is
reflected in your
absolutely to be
Reinhardt
rewarded.
rankings next week. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I do hope to see that reflected in the Reinhardt rankings as well. But because I do feel like there is a criticism, like I feel like I've heard a lot of like we have to care about the past, but then also a lot of like we don't care about the past. When like I'm pretty upfront, I don't give a shit that much about the past. So like I don't really care like that much about it. I will admit that's a good point, Josh. That's actually a very fair point, but also it cuts both ways in that some of these players like Hawk are also playing against like styles of play that have also been innovated within their own styles to like a whole different type of way to play. Like so in terms of like how fast paced they are playing, who they're locking down. Like when are they using matrices?
Bren just wants a screen to swap. He just wants to move on.
I don't think yours is horrendous other than Piggy at 7th, honestly.
I like Piggy.
I think Piggy at 7th.
I like Piggy. Piggy I think
like
was
one good hero.
goddamn Piggy.
Also Hawk above space.
Piggy had insane. I don't know. I mean, the mechanics of Piggy as an individual, the synergy that he had with his tanks, even when they were swapping Django out, was off the charts. Like multiple times you'd be watching Houston, I just thought Piggy would be the best player, was the best player on that team. And it was in his rookie year. Like his rookie year coming in, and he looked like one of the best off tanks in the league. I'm not going to say the best, but he was in the top 5 at least consistently over the course of the season for me. And I think that's worth something in your rookie year coming in when your team is, again, swapping in and out different pieces and not performing particularly well. Off-tank is a role that's really hard to look good at with the eye test when your team is sometimes struggling. Houston didn't struggle as much as they had in previous season. Arguably, this is like the best season that Houston's had since like, what, 2018 stage 1?
I think it literally is the best.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean,
but I rate that really highly. I know this is not a list that's like meant to define the potential of the future for players because that's dumb. It's a greatest of all time list. But Piggy finding his footing, looking good on a team that was kind of just trying to essentially break into the top spots on off tank in the most competitive year yet. Yeah.
You know what I appreciate about doing this as a collective? The idiocy all balances out most of the time.
Wait, did we see Matt's list?
Yeah,
Matt.
What is Matt's list?
He had Fury at number 2. That's kind of wild. He had Fanbin
Base
at
at
5th,
4.
man. That's a bit wrong. Elsa at
Also
9th.
I mean, that's crazy. Elsa beat. I was the OG Elsa enthusiast too, and like I did not have Elsa that high. I find it wild that Hotba is somehow below late young Gargoyle. I mean, that's just
Gargoyle's
like,
a bit high, but honestly, this isn't a bonkers list. It's got the right names in
Space at 4.
a bit wonky orders.
I mean, those two are friends. You know, that's.
But yeah, I think at least the top half of our list is extremely solid. The collective.
My list was the best. I'm just gonna say this. My list was the best, and I deserve credit.
All right, put up Jonathan's list. Let us revisit Jonathan's list.
It really was the best list.
Choyobin,
and I will take no criticism.
I feel like Krong is a little high.
Yes, I agree with
Maybe,
that,
yeah.
actually. Krong, I didn't even have Krong on my list at all because Krong was one of those people that, again, fell into the bucket of hadn't accomplished enough, hadn't got deep enough, didn't have an elite year for me to really look at. And he doesn't have a particularly long career. I mean, he has like a somewhat long career, but not massively long to make up for the fact that he's like had
He was an MVP
Semi.
candidate in 2020, though, and they won that stage. So I am overrating that a
he
bit.
shouldn't have been an MVP
Right.
candidate.
I think
He
in
shouldn't have been,
2020
yes.
he was really good on Sigma. His 2021, when I went and watched him, he was still solid, but I think he earned a top 15 slot ranking for me. But like, I don't think he could have. He just didn't have enough history or like.
Still better
maybe
list than all you
best.
guys. I'm sorry.
Great.
It was an
Oh,
all right
wow.
list. It's a pretty decent list, but I will
I
say,
think this is maybe our best holistic list yet, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. We're improving.
I think
it's
the
pretty good.
bottom half of it is pretty controversial, but I think the top 6, I would say, is pretty fucking solid.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a decent list.
Yeah,
Pretty
I
good
was
list.
hoping I'd break Piggy into the top 10.
No,
And
there's no
just-
fucking way on earth.
I was
There's no
planning
fucking way
on
on
watching
earth.
this
Crowbar
episode
him in there.
retrospectively and just hoping to see your mold at the beginning. And
We should do our
it
greatest
didn't
of all
happen.
time lists after this. What was our best list of Overwatch?
Our best list of Overwatch 1.
We need to keep
you
that
wanna
content coming. We need to keep the content.
If you
coming.
want to do the top 10 overall, that would be a fire list.
That'd be hard to
That
do.
would be so difficult because we'd all have different names as well. That would be a really
Yeah.
tough one to
It'd be
aggregate,
a very
but
hard one.
maybe we could. I mean, if we all did a top 20, we could probably get a top 10 out of it.
Hmm.
I'm honestly baffled as to what the fuck we're even going to do with DPS. I was
Yeah.
thinking about
we
that
gotta split
recently.
them up. We have
We
to
need
split
to.
them
We're
up.
splitting them into
How?
flex.
We
and
have
hit
to
scans.
split
You
them,
can't
but
split
can't.
DPS.
Because the role has become
The role has become
homogenized.
homogenized.
Yeah.
Hyperflex players, what
As-
bucket do they go in?
over time.
What
Yeah.
bucket does a Prophet or a Fletter or a Yaki go into? I just don't know.
Yeah.
Do they go into
hard.
People
flex
have
bucket?
ideas. Leave a comment.
I mean,
Ugh.
Yaki would likely. I'd put Yaki in the flex because he doesn't traditionally play a lot of hit scan still, though he does play hit scan. But he traditionally played projectile and tracer mostly.
Yeah. So is Tracer just a flex
Tracer.
pick?
I don't. I think Tracer is an agnostic pick. I think you are either a Tracer player or like someone that plays or someone that just happens to play Tracer along with the other stuff. Tracer is kind of like a.
It's not the
joker.
way anymore,
You can
though.
just put wherever. You can just put
A lot of
wherever.
players
Top
in
10 on each
2021,
hero.
they're not just wholesale Tracer players. It's like I think the expectation now is that you can't specialize in Tracer.
We might have to
You
think
you
about
have
our
to have a
format a little
top tier
heavily.
Tracer
We're gonna have
alongside
to lock
of a
ourselves
good
into a
role.
chamber.
Next week, we're doing main tanks.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
we'll do
next week.
main
week.
tanks next week.
And you're saying that I should be taking into account, pre-owl really heavily, and
so.
and also I do also take
not.
into account people who play in Overwatch League though as well.
Yeah, so that average performance from Zumba that really bumped him up.
I mean,
From
I think
Zumba?
they were.
Zumba
they
played
were,
2 years of Overwatch League. I mean,
Yeah.
he did play half of
bumped
Overwatch
him
League.
up.
And
Bumped
he
him
was
up a
pretty
little bit.
average in
Okay.
Both.
Early
There were
Overwatch
certain
League.
Western main tank players who did get the late young treatment. I'm just gonna.
Who? Sorry,
You're tr-
who are the Western main tanks that
you
have
tr- are
played
you
from
trying to-
2016 to 2021?
Technically super.
Name me
well,
one.
I said
Technically
the
super.
2018 treatment, the 2018 late young treatment. But we can revisit that next episode.
Yeah.
This is- okay,
I'm wrapping the episode
I think
up.
we should all
Right.
agree to put Jonathan at number 1 on our list just to see what just to see the reaction.
Well, now
I'm
you've
gonna-
spoiled it already.
I'm wrapping up
so-
the episode. Thank you for watching the off-tank special episode. Follow our Twitter. You can see it at the little thing there. This is the Plat Chat podcast. It's about to go away. And now subscribe to our YouTube and then hit the little bell notification thingy as well, maybe, so you get notified when we post new videos. And you can write a comment. How upset were you with our lists this week? Because last week, my God, Overwatch has never had so much engagement.
You
We
guys
should
are
have
welcome.
trolled this
You
week.
guys are welcome.
Yeah. Connor just he
what
pumped up the
happened?
content. He I don't know. We were full steam ahead. Anyway, thanks for watching. Next time we'll be doing main tanks. I don't know when we're planning on doing that, but it will be the main tanks as the next one. So we'll see you all then. Thanks for watching. Peace.